Hey, Sox fans. Welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, a local fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, hosted by Nick Murawski and Hester.
Hey, Sox fans. Hey, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. Hey, it's episode 285, and we do this live on Sunday nights at 9:15 on the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Jump in, join us, bring us everything. This is White Sox therapy, questions, comments, concerns, which I'm sure you have no shortage of those as our White Sox hit the century mark in losses. It is unbelievable, but very, very believable. Got so much to get to on the week that was, and the T-shirts that the players are wearing, and what our fearless GM is saying. All that and more with my best friend, diehard Sox fan in his own right, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, hey, buddy. It's a happy Sunday to you.
Yeah.
We're in a heat wave. Hope it's like summer's returning, even though this is unofficially the last week of summer, you could say, with Labor Day around the corner.
Yep.
And spooky season. It's hiding. It's waiting for those that are just waiting for Labor Day to get by you. And then you're going to see the 12-foot skeletons out in the lawns. It's a great time to be alive, my friend.
It's if you are a diehard Sox fan, I'm sure you are. If you're listening and watching, this season has been spooky season. Pat, you are already in it. You are chin deep in spooky season. So, yeah, I was in a Costco this past weekend, and they had these werewolves. Have you seen these? These like 12-foot werewolves. That is a new thing. Yeah, front lawn decor. But right next to the werewolves were two Christmas trees that were all lit up. So it's all whatever you need, it's right there for you.
Shop. It's a one-stop shop. You know what? Yeah. And I don't want to offend anybody that really gets into the holiday time and spooky season as it's been deemed. But does it need to be as long of a decoration time as it is, do you think, or is it a little bit much? I'm a little bit more simple. It's like, let's carve a pumpkin. Maybe we'll put a big spider out on the with some webbing.
Sure.
Out on the front porch. And that's about it. I don't know. I'm a little bit taken aback by the 12-foot skeletons, and now I'm hearing the werewolves. It's a little much, don't you think? Or am I crazy?
I've never done like Halloween lights. We don't do a ton of Halloween decor per se, more of fall decor, which is a catch-all. You put the fall stuff out, the pumpkins, the scarecrows. You can let them ride for a couple months. You don't have to worry about really changing that up. You're in season for a while. Yeah. So there might be a few, specific Halloween things here and there as it gets closer. In terms of for the trick or treaters and everything, but we don't go all out. That's for sure.
Well, let's just put this out there in the world. A little peek behind the curtain here for everybody joining us, and thanks for jumping on, everybody. It's good to see everybody out there. Nick and I don't have a lot for tonight. We're not going to lie to you. There isn't a lot to talk about. This team just it reached 100 losses. They're the fastest team to 100 losses in 108 years, which is kind of mind-boggling. And we're here for you. We're glad to be with you, but we'd like to take it a little different direction. Nick's going to talk about, we're going to go down a little bit of a road here like we normally do, but we'd like to open up to you. Like if you've got some questions for Nick or I, whatever it might be, we're an open book tonight. Ask us Sox questions, ask us any kind of questions. We're here for you. We're ready to just have some fun. Why don't we have some fun on a Sunday night, Nick?
We're going to try to have some fun. We definitely have some stuff to get to, some things that Chris Getz has said, some things that Sizemore have said, and of course, the latest, what has happened with Detroit and a little bit in San Francisco. But Matthew, Sean, Peyton, Sydney, Greg, hello, Shy Sox, Anthony, Blake joining us for the first time live. I love it. Usually an audio guy, and here joining us on the YouTube channel. That is awesome. Welcome. In a 100 loss season so far. So many. Howard, thank you for coming in, spending your time with us on Sunday night. So Sox are 31-100. 31-100. There are 131 games left. I'm sorry, down.
No, please no. Please no. If that's the case, I'm going to jump out of a building, and that's Lord. It. That'll be all.
What if there was 131 games left? I'm sorry. There's thankfully 131 games are gone. There's 31 left, and if all that math checks out, the Sox need to go 12-19 to avoid 120 losses. I think I did all that math right. Sox need to go 12-19 the rest of the way to avoid that 120 losses. So the Detroit series oddly wraps up on Monday, Pat. Normally series will wrap up on Sunday, nice and tight.
The old wraparound.
That's the old MLB wraparound right there. So that is going to wrap up on Monday night. Sox hit the 100 loss mark, of course, here on August 25th. So back-to-back 100 loss seasons in the sixth 100 loss season in franchise history. Sox have never lost 100 games in back-to-back seasons until now. 2023, 2024. Again, they're going to be celebrating 125 years. They're asking you to be all in. They're asking you to jump in feet first with that 10% discount. And here we are, back-to-back 100 losses. They're pretty much a lock to be the worst team in franchise history, which was the 1970 team, 56-106. So,
boy, I'd take that, wouldn't you?
It's going to get to that. This team's going to scream past. I think they're going to get past 120 losses. I really do.
I don't think that's even in question. I mean, I think that's almost a guarantee at this point. You said 12-19 they have to go. I don't know how they're going to win 12 games.
I don't see them winning 12 games. Like, again, we had that moment, that Yankees game, the opener of the series. We touched on it last week. It brought so much excitement. This was after, of course, the 2-game loss to the Cubs under Grady, and he comes out with this team, and we beat the Yankees by double digits, and Grady we trust. It's like, this team feels different, and it did for that day. And they were saying kind of the right things for a short amount of time, but Grady's 3-11 as the skipper. And at the end of the day, it's like, good players make good managers. That's really what it comes down to. I didn't think Grady was going to do very much with this team. I mean, he's deer in headlights. He didn't expect to be here. He's just happy to be here at this point. So
you think he's still happy to be here?
I think so. Yes. I think he's like, what? This is something that I might never experience ever again. It's not going to look, no one's going to be blaming him. It's house money right now. It's I get a taste of managerial. I'm wearing it for the team. I probably will be in good graces with Jerry because I'm the fall guy right now for the rest of the way, get a little bit of experience, and who knows, again, when you get good in with Jerry, you're made for life, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what he's probably looking at.
Do you think, where did he come from to be this guy in this organization, though? I mean, I don't know. It seems very odd. You would think, like, if Jerry's going to groom someone to be his guy, and you had mentioned before, it seems more like a Jim Thome type of situation. Another former Cleveland player that actually played for this team and did some things that were memorable for the organization, and not a Grady Sizemore. I just wonder if that's more in the future of a Jim Thome. He hasn't been talked about a lot, right? I don't think he's been linked to any kind of consideration. He wouldn't fit the bill as the looking outside of the organization, somebody else that's has worn the uniform or worn it in terms of being a manager, the experience, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just curious if they've given thought to someone that's actually had some ties and has some say seemingly in the organization.
So I was splitting hairs with some people on social media regarding outside the organization, and I I'm tired of continuing to kick up people from within the organization. I call it organizational inbreeding, and it's just, this is kind of what we do. We did it with Getz, and there's some smoke around Grady, and someone said to me, well, Grady's only been around for 6 months. Wouldn't he be an outside hire? And, he's bringing this perspective from, a different organization or whatever. And okay, you can have that feeling. I guess I'm curious what you think in terms of that. The moment he's in the system and Jerry's got his tentacles all over him and he's just like, immersed in that, and he becomes a puppet, which they seem to do, right? These inexperienced either executives or managers or coaches, they just lap up that Kool-Aid. Pager was doing it from the entire time he was hired, singing Jerry's praises. And, so it's like, once you get in and they get into your veins, so to speak, you become that organizational puppet. So I feel like absolutely Grady is part of that. Do you think if they hired Grady, if they took the interim label off of him, you would look at that as, oh, that was kind of like an outside hire?
That would be, again, it wouldn't fit every criteria that Chris Getz said that he would look at or use when looking at the next manager. It doesn't fit the bill. Now, I've always been the person that said, please don't ever listen to people in high positions like that when they're being interviewed, or especially when they're on the podium, because they will lie to you most of the time. Most of what they say is not truthful. So, and especially in this organization where you can say things and then all of a sudden, as I don't know why I thought of this, but when you said tentacles and Jerry putting tentacles, it made me think of Ursula from The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, sure.
And these poor unfortunate souls that he brings in that are part of his organization. That's what I just thought of a minute ago.
It's kind of true, Pat, though. Like, I kind of feel bad for people that they get roped into this, and maybe, in a way it's like, what, I'm made. I've got job security, but you kind of don't in a way, because you feel like indebted to him. Yeah. And Jerry probably, once he gets a hold of you, I feel like it happened with Kenny. Didn't Kenny try to leave a long time ago? And
well, Kenny had I think an opportunity to go to the Blue Jays, if memory serves me right. And he I think he got then a promotion, so then he couldn't leave. Right. He got promoted and then he ended up staying. And I could see why he would do that. It's like he had kids that went to school here. He had roots here, and I'm talking about Kenny. So if you get an opportunity to stay and you get promoted to a higher position and you don't have to take that next job, especially in Toronto and leaving the country. And that's a big change for somebody that had at the time, a young family. So it doesn't surprise me that he stuck, but I don't know. If somebody wants to pay me more money and I don't have to be accountable for too much other than, just make sure I do it Jerry's way, and you're going to continue to pay me handsomely for it. I'm not going to have a lot of beef. Please, I wish I had a job like that. Please hire me, Jerry. I'll go work for you and be the meat shield.
When results don't really matter, and the expectations.
You and I can generally manage this team to 100 losses, Nick. You and I could. I don't have an eye for anything. I don't know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a player, but I'll tell you what, I could probably put the same amount of ability on the field as what has been put out over not just this year. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking and let's exclude the rebuild years and the years where they actually had success. Let's remove those years. Let's go back to the Robin Ventura years. Let's go back to 2009 to 2000 and whatever, 15, 16, when they did decide to eventually do it. What was happening then when the team was still not performing and pretty, just either bad or just average, right? There was nothing to really write home about. There was that half a season with Robin, and that was about it. Yeah. And look, there's these little periods where they pop up and they're actually good, but they've never done anything right consistently for long enough. So you can't tell me that the average person, the average fan, probably could do just as good a job.
I would feel like it's a pretty simple syllabus, or a survival guide, whatever you want to call it. If you were to get that job, like, here's your talking points. This is what I am going to do. Just so you know, like, don't expect much. I don't plan on seriously investing anything. We're going to really try to make sure these young guys hit. Try to get the most you can from our assets, but here's your fallback lines. And Getz had a lot of them recently. It was a new homestand. He talked, and some of the answers he gave regarding the managerial search, when at first it sounded like they are hitting the ground running as soon as Grifol had left. Mm-hmm. We are at it. Like, we are finding this. This is going to be something we're going to announce pretty much at the end of the season. He's fumbling over words, and it sounded like he gave this managerial search very little thought since Grifol had been fired. And I don't think he's really making any serious decisions. It sounded like he was really caught off guard. And that was a question that I don't think should have caught him off guard. That was something anybody would want to know. How are things going with this? Now, Merkin had a blurb. You spoke of Jim Thome recently, and boy, Jim Thome, the legend, the White Sox legend, Jim Thome, was all over. I love how he's a White Sox legend. Jim Thome, nothing but praise over Sizemore. So let me give you this Merkin stuff. So GM Chris Getz talked about looking for a full-time manager outside the organization and someone currently in uniform. But count Jim Thome as a believer in Sizemore if he wanted to push for this job to go beyond the interim. There's no doubt about it. Big Jim Thome said, in life or in the game, you have these guys that are just this feel of watching him. Obviously, it's very short term right now and at the beginning, but boy, you could see the making of someone that really could do very well. Everybody is really excited about him. How could you not be, right? He works really hard at whatever he does. When he played, he worked hard. Me being around spring training, I would describe it as someone who is an extremely great listener. And when he spoke, the room stopped because of his credibility. Great respect, and I know the other side of him, because guys, like, there's a passion to win and a will to go to that cost to win and beat that guy on the field. He was special. He really was. End quote. That was the White Sox legend Jim Thome speaking about Grady Sizemore.
I mean, again, let me know when Bad News Bob tweets about it or writes an article, because that's when we'll know, Nick. I mean, honestly, that's when we'll know what will be decided. I'd like to go back to, the question by Chris Getz. How could you be caught off guard by that question? It's the one thing, it's the next big thing you have to do right in order to put this organization seemingly on the right track. I mean, will it ever get on the right track? I don't have no idea, but that would seem to be like the next big thing. Like, all right, who is going to either be our bridge manager to get to the next one when we are ready to win? Who's that Ricky Renteria type that's going to be able to, manage and develop and build a culture for us? And maybe he's so good that he sticks around, when we are a decent team. Or are you going all in? Like, who can you convince to take your money to be here, to be that this is a great hire. This is going to be someone that's going to be here long term. This is someone that has skins on the wall, that maybe he doesn't have the World Series championships, but man, he's been close. It was knocking on the door a lot. He brought a lot of teams along. Maybe similar situation where not a lot of talent, brought the most out of people. I don't know. I don't even know who that would be, Nick, but I can't imagine that you would be caught off guard by a question. This is still within 3 weeks fresh of a hiring. I can't remember now. It feels like
it wasn't a very confident answer at all. It was it stopped me. I mean, I definitely listened to it. It seemed like he just
Are you
heard
sure it
about
wasn't Grady Sizemore talking that stopped you in your tracks that you had to listen? Was Grady Sizemore in your house, Nick? Was he talking to you?
I have not met Grady Sizemore.
No?
I don't have any plans to meet Grady Sizemore, but we'll talk maybe
at Sox Fest next year.
Well, that's true. He might be at a booth with his T-shirts selling. So this was Getz prior to the Detroit series. We know there will be no shortcuts along the way. We are committed to doing what's right for us long term, and we've got to stay the course, not cave based on pressures or noise outside of the organization, and do what's right for us so we can be successful in the future. So what is okay? So that was very Han speak in my mind. Thought it was convenient. And we just had the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of Han and Williams being dismissed, and so I don't quite understand the not cave based on pressures or noise outside of the organization. You know, are there people outside of the organization that they would even be listening to anyway? I feel like the main ones they're listening to are there. And it's pretty much LaRussa, right? He's the consultant. He's the one, he's in-house. You got Tomey now, who seems to have an ear for how things should go and is advocating for Sizemore. I don't understand, why would you even be going off of pressures? Is he talking about media pressures? Is he talking about fan pressures? Is he talking about, you know, somebody, somebody that's telling them what they should be doing? He shouldn't be listening to that anyway.
Well, one, it might be a good idea for this organization to listen to the outside, right? Maybe they put up some mirrors at 35th and Shields, and actually listen to what people are saying about your organization, and not feel like it's you're insulated and you keep everything out and everything you're doing is just fine. This is exactly why, Nick, that this hire, whoever it is, it might not be even the person that you hire. It's the process that you go through to kind of understand, again, to get feedback from other people about your organization on how they think about you, and maybe let you think about how you could improve it a little bit. So that, again, whatever you've been doing, there shouldn't be any pressures from the outside right now anyway. Listen, if you feel pressure now at 100 losses, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, listen, there should be zero pressure on you. You are a laughing stock. You are terrible. You know that you're terrible. Getz hasn't liked this team, as you tweeted out today, since spring training. So he can't like it anymore. Listen, you should probably try and perform under pressure and invite that pressure. And maybe, you know, it'll hold you accountable to doing the right things, rather than let's just cut it all out. And I don't want to listen to anything. And you know, we're just going to continue to go about business the way we've always done it, because that has proven year after year, decade after decade, to not work really well for you. So listen to the outside world, invite some pressure in on yourself, and hold yourself accountable to turn this thing into, you know, something that you can at least respect, and your fans should be excited about, really.
Yeah, this is the time when you're asking fans to think about reinvesting. You know, season ticket holders have those deadlines. You've talked about discounts. You know, this is when you're drumming up promotion ideas, you know, for potentially for next year. It's a big year with the 05 anniversary, the 20th anniversary. You know, you're also advertising the 125, the rich history of the Chicago White Sox. How are you going to get this fan base interested? How are you going to get this team headed in the right direction? You know, Bob had a question that I think we can, you know, chew on a little bit here. Some hypothetical paths in terms of off-season goals that move us from legendary awful to just awful. You know, off-season goals, I think, you know, it's got to start with, well, what positions do we need to fill in terms of like executive or managerial? So obviously they need to fill a manager. what give are you giving to that manager? Do they get to, hire a new pitching coach? Are they going to be able to bring in their own batting coach, third base coach, first base coach, analytically minded people? Are you going to create any new departments to try to keep up with what's happening in Major League Baseball? Is that something that Getz is interested in doing? Is that something that, Bannister, others have maybe tried to talk to Jerry and let's try to create some more avenues, within this mom and pop world of ours. I think you also then are going to have major, roster issues, namely no more Moncada. Okay. So what's your plan with third base? Is that a Vargas? Is that Lenyn Sosa? Is that Brian Ramos? Where's the plan there? Where's the development plan? What's the track? Because I think, Pat, maybe I'm wrong, but sooner or later, you're going to have to pick a lane instead of bouncing guys around and playing guys all over the place. Who's going to be your consistent guys? You have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like they have no idea how to do that. And they're bebopping and bouncing guys all over the field, playing guys out of position, claiming they're just trying to get a feel for where guys can play, when in reality, you might not know. And they might, and a player might not give you a good sense just because they're that type of player. But, you got assets like Crochet and Robert. What are you seriously going to do with those guys?
Yeah.
What are you looking for those guys? Are you finally going to get some bats? Are you going to wake up and try to get some bats? Or you got all this pitching, all this young pitching? Where are these bats coming from? Those are just some of my early off-season goals here as we talk late August.
I think I look at it from more of a broad perspective, and Bob, I'll apologize for maybe not answering the question directly, but I do love the Space Ghost.
Absolutely. Avatar. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think Getz really has an opportunity here because to kind of put his thumbprint on the organization and make it what he wants it to be or what he envisions it to be, because he did inherit a manager. He did inherit a lot of the roster. Now, he's been with the organization a long time. A lot of these guys were people that he had, supposedly helped develop throughout the system, but he did inherit a lot of things that maybe weren't his decisions along the way, right? He inherited some guys now that aren't on the team that he got rid of that he didn't like. We had mentioned that before. So I think it's really about, okay, he's got to identify who this team is going to be in 5 years or who he wants them to be. And I'm not talking about, how many wins they're going to have or statistically what they're going to be, but who are you going to be? I've talked about it a lot. This team has not had any sort of identity in my mind in quite some time. Who are you going to be? Are you going to build this team to mash? Are you going to build this team, to lean more on the defense? Are you going to build this team, starting pitching and bullpen and really win that way? How do you really envision yourself winning? If it were me, I would say, listen, we do something pretty well, I think, and that's develop pitching here. So let's lean into that, and that's who we're going to be. We're going to kick your ass every night at 7:00 with our pitching staff, and that's how we want to move forward. Everything else we're going to have to kind of work and trade and bring into the organization. The second thing I would think about is, let's start with the end in mind, right? Let's kind of decide what our goals are going to be based on what is the end result and kind of work backwards. That's kind of how I think in terms of
backwards
businesses,
planning. Yeah.
The businesses I've been in my life, and okay, here's this great, huge goal that we have. Let's start working backwards. Okay, to get there, these are the steps that we need to take along the way and the timeline that it's going to take to get there. I think a realistic timeline and plan really needs to be implemented. So I think it's bigger than just looking at next year and going, okay, we're going to bring up these 5 pitchers and we're going to try and develop them on the fly. And we've got to draft this and we've got to do that. I think it's got to be, let's think a little bit bigger picture, because you're going to need time to really do this the right way. And I think Getz himself has a little bit of an opportunity to do that, because again, he's not going to be judged on this year. He's not going to probably be judged on what the results are next year, but he's going to have to start seeing his plan and the dominoes come into place over the next 2 to 3 years to really prove if he's worth his salt in terms of a general manager. So, Bob, I don't know if that answers your question really, but I think it's really got to be a lot like, okay, let's come into spring training next year, and here's our, and I know this is kind of like business termy type stuff, but here's our mission statement. Here's our pillars for success, and here's how we get to those success pillars. So,
but that's kind of what Pedro did, right? He had
he did do it, but
and he had all that kind of thing, and this is our philosophy and all that.
And it's fine. And the things and I think you and I bought into a lot of the things.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
In the beginning.
Sure,
those are all fine things, right? He just couldn't deliver on any of them. He couldn't communicate them. He seemed to be the relationships that he was unable to build, and a lot of that too. Relationships go both ways, right? It's player and manager, but he seemingly couldn't connect with the room, and he seemingly lost them a long time ago. By the way, it wasn't just recently; it just wasn't this year. I don't think he connected with the players much, going as far back as the last April. That April 2024, April 2023, when they're going through a 10-game losing streak. I think that's when he lost the team, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think there was a lack of respect, maybe from the get-go, of who is this guy, a guy that the Kansas City Royals gave up on and said, go. They had managerial vacancies, and they passed on Grifol. They were going through a whole change in their system. And, we joke around about, the Sox have been – why are the Sox trying to be the Royals? Are you watching what the Royals are doing right now? Are you watching of what kind of team they have transformed into from last season? And people starting to ask the question of, well, can the Sox do that? You got a lot of things.
There's the Bobby Witt Jr. on our team, right?
Exactly. Where's that type of superstar? Are the Sox going to go after some arms and identify which arms can really come into the staff and help out? Are we going to have the executives, the personnel? Are we going to find the right manager? Are they going to be able to identify that? Those are all.
Frankly, are they going to have a budget to work with that's going to help them be competitive over the next couple of years, or do we have to wait? Somebody I can't remember who it was, but somebody put in there, this team's going to look different over the next 5 years. I think it was Scott, he's very optimistic about where this team's going to be at in the next 5 years. And because new manager, new, possibly new ownership, possibly new stadium. I don't know that I really want to wait for a new stadium as Jerry wants to, for this team to be able to compete. I just think that's silliness, because we know how things, how long things take in this state to get moving, and things to be agreed upon, and everybody you got to grease, and backs you got to scratch to get anything done. I mean, I believe more in Jerry as a businessman and to get things done, more so than I do in terms of owning a baseball team. But
Jerry's going to wait out someone like Pritzker, and he's going to, because Pritzker's, it seems like he's not at all interested in dealing with the Chicago Bears or the White Sox. That is nowhere near his interest level or an agenda. So Jerry's going to pray that Pritzker gets out, and somebody that he can make a deal with, that is going to be more like-minded in terms of the way he does things, that maybe like-minded in terms of the late 80s and how things got done with that crazy deal for New Comiskey Park. So doesn't it feel like forever ago that we were talking about the stadium and the renderings, and oh my goodness, look at what's going to happen, and we're just going to be the talk of the baseball world? And it's like, no, you gotta, this is a long ways away if it's ever going to happen. Build a team, Jerry.
Well, it's
build a team.
I don't know if I told you about this, but there was a couple weeks ago, a couple of my teammates that they sell play-by-play, right? And then White Sox and Bears are part of their job, is advertising for White Sox and Bears. So there's a couple of events that the Sox put on throughout the year that our teammates get to go. I didn't get to go on this, but they do one of those boat cruises, one of the small boat cruises in Chicago, and a great thing that the Sox, there are some things the Sox do well, and that's one of them. They do a really good job working with their partners. And I was looking at some of the pictures from somebody I work with, and and they saw, they were showing me, okay, here's me with a couple people from the Sox and their management team and all that kind of stuff. And then there was a picture that they took and there was a sign, a LED or some type of large sign right in the 78th, big Sox sign right there as you're going by on your boat tour. And I don't know if it said anything like future home of the Chicago, but it said White Sox and the 78th or whatever that's is being called over there. Is that what it is? The 78th or something like that.
Sure.
I just thought that was interesting. It's like we're going to stake our claim to this and hoping that we're going to be here. I just thought that was like, I don't know, it just caught my eye, I guess. Is curious.
Yeah, that is pretty curious. And I'm sure they treat their partners really well. I feel like you have to, like, please don't leave us. Thank you. And by the way, we need you to stick around next year and don't question how things are going to go, because it's not going to be good. I think you've got to like just absolutely roll out the red carpet. Trey, thank you for jumping in. Trey wants to know, thank you for Dr. Nick. He says, I think I'm in an abusive relationship with the Chicago White Sox. What should I do? Trey, you're come to the right place. You're not alone. This is a very, I believe it's a very trusted environment. We're a supportive community. We are all suffering. We are committed to this team for a variety of different reasons. Some of us for decades and decades, multi-generational, some just recently. However it is, you are stuck with the Chicago White Sox. And
I don't know if is a real therapist when you walk into their office and you lay down and you tell them that you are, and for those that have been in an abusive relationship, I'm sorry, but and what if the doctor said that? Well, you're stuck. Good luck, and we'll see you next week. Our time is up.
But once you identify the situation and you come to terms with the reality of, now we can start healing. Now we can start trying to get past this. We're attached with the White Sox. I don't have a second favorite team. I'm not going anywhere, but I love this team so much. And I have such a rich history with this team and, family and friends and, memories. I mean, moments, it's the good and the bad. I care so much is why we sit here and we try to analyze and we talk ourselves through these issues and we vent and we ask for better. We deserve better. We all as fans deserve so much better than what we've been given. That's an understatement probably. So Trey, hang in there. You're not alone. We're gonna, try to just talk through some of this. There's going to be some real lows, I think, over the next couple of years, but it's got to get better, right, Pat? I mean, it's got to eventually.
Will tell you that they shouldn't be this bad next year. I'm going to answer Greg's question since you took Trey's question.
Yeah.
Are you guys rooting for them to break the record for futility this year? And I would answer that by saying no. Only for the fact that it doesn't really benefit me in any way. Their draft pick is going to be as high as it's going to be. It's going to be 10th, I believe, for next year. So there's no benefit to me for them to just have a record of losing. If there was that carrot out there, like, okay, there's a number one pick, and maybe there was another terrible team out there that we were, trying to get more losses than to improve our draft status, or if there was some benefit to it, then I would say, yeah, why not? I mean, at this point, what the hell's the difference? Let's go for it, right? Let's be the worst of all time. But I don't know that I want to be forgotten. I want this year to be kind of just forgotten and brushed aside. And if you don't break that record, you can easily do that. But if you do break that record, you are going. I wouldn't know who the Cleveland Spiders are if they didn't have the losses that they would. You, I wouldn't know that the Mets had the modern day worst record in baseball if they didn't have it, right? I would have no idea. Do you know who has the second worst? I don't, because nobody cares about who is the second worst. They only care about who was the absolute worst. And you'll be remembered until somebody else comes along and somehow, I don't know how you could, is worse than the version of the Chicago White Sox. So I personally am not rooting for it. Again, because there's no benefit to me as a fan to say, I could endure it as a Bears fan. I could endure the losing and the bad seasons because of the way it happened and it shook out and your number one picks you got. And it looks like it's going to be bearing fruit for the foreseeable future. Let's hope. So that's where I stand, Nick. I don't know where you would weigh in on that.
Those are great arguments. I think the lack of a benefit, there's no great pick. We're not going to benefit from continuing to lose and be the worst of all time. I got to say, I do think it's going to happen though.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is going to absolutely happen. At one point I was like, if you're going to be bad, you might as well be absolutely horrible. And a part of me thought, I hope Grifol wears this on his resume. You wanted to be a manager. Here you go, buddy. And it also, I also in a weird, probably dumb way, foolish way, thought it would have some effect on Jerry. And I don't think it will have any effect on him. They've already hit 100. So they're this is like the first collection here under Jerry's rule where they've lost back-to-back 100 loss seasons here and 125-year history. A lot of teams talk about, all their successes and their championships and their rich history. We're rolling into 125 years this offseason with this kind of stink. So it's already been horrible. It's already been bad. This will still be remembered. We as Sox fans aren't going to forget about this. And I think that's really how it matters. Mm-hmm. I don't care if somebody from Milwaukee or San Francisco or Seattle, can identify the 2024 White Sox is now the all-time losing. I think it matters about this fan base that's going to be paying the money, paying attention, and investing. We already know this is horrible right now. I don't need 120 plus losses to tell me that.
Yeah. And also, by the way, it will not change the way Jerry thinks, and it's not going to make him sell the team. It's not going to make him act any different either, right? All the losses that pile up isn't going to change the way
Sydney kind of had that question, Pat, if you wanted to.
I didn't see. I'm sorry, Sydney.
No, yes. You and Sydney are thinking the same way.
Yeah. So firing Pedro is not enough given the season ticket holders 10% off. No, Jerry, I think, is unaffected by this. And I think the narrative that's out there, and we've talked about it a lot on this show and other shows, that, the narrative is the people that are employed by Jerry will say he cares and he's, it hurts and every loss hurts him and he watches every one and he watches every, listens to the broadcasts on the radio and he watches on TV and he's really invested. And that might all be true. But it's not going to change the way that a businessman goes about doing his business, because he's going to look over the 60 plus years that he's been doing in the business world and making what he's making and looking around at his palatial estate wherever he lives and the nice car that he drives and the things that he's been able to do and the people he's been able to meet and the experience of life that he's had, and think, well, I've done something right. I have all this. So I'm not going to change my way just based on this one blip of a radar worst season of all time. I've got to be doing something right. And people with an ego like he has, this will not affect him. There's no way in my mind that it would affect him.
And I think you had mentioned the Chicago Bears just a few minutes ago, and when we touched on it last episode, and how real that effect is in my mind in terms of this kind of going away quickly. People's memory in Chicago, they're going to forget kind of about this quickly because of what usually is Bears season, no matter what. We flip to the NFL fast, and then once the NFL starts, first Bears game, September 8th? Once the NFL kicks off, you're going to have, I think, a lot of people like that still had a toe in the water with the Sox. It is, my mind is on the Bears, especially if they start out the way we're all hoping and thinking. that they will. And you will forget maybe quickly, and that's what Jerry's going to want, right? It's like, good, nobody's breathing down my neck anymore. Thank God the Bears are a distraction. They're doing well, all of that kind of stuff. I can be just quiet in the off season. Nobody cares. No, just leave me alone. Nobody mentioned the White Sox. Let's keep focusing on the Bears.
Yeah. And, I think about too, what we talked about last week. I told that little story about Jerry and, at least we're not the Cubs. I think the Cubs have rattled off like 6 in a row now and, put themselves. Nick, you might be on mute. Did you mute yourself by chance? You must have been swearing at me. This is where Nick usually cusses at me and he's got to filter himself, even though it's a podcast and we can swear.
Yeah, right. We usually try to keep it somewhat clean. I think the Cubs went back to 500. You know what happened is my microphone's on a sensor. When I say the Cubs, sometimes it mutes my microphone. There's some weird setting on this that I probably should have overrode. But anyway, yeah, I think they're on a little bit of a heater.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Again, for a guy that if people are asking if this gets to Jerry, no, he's again a business person and he's also very petty because he'll just look at, at least we're not that team that underperformed. I'd rather be us because there was no expectation. So as long as
someone said to me at work this past week who's a Cubs fan, he goes to me, "Oh man, what's with your Sox? I thought they were going to help out my Cubs by beating the San Francisco Giants, because we need to make up some ground with the wild card." I'm like, "Are you goofy? Like, have you not been paying attention?"
Did you do like a full hockey fight, like pull his jersey over his head and pummel him?
I mean, if you ever could just if it was ever socially acceptable to give somebody like just a forearm shiver, just right in like the temple, I would have probably done that. What are you talking about? What's wrong with my Chicago?
What's wrong with you?
Do you think they're all of a sudden going to turn it on out on the West Coast and beat the Giants, trying to help the Chicago Cubs fighting for their wild card chances? You knucklehead.
You do have to play nice. I mean, you are just starting at this place. You're the new guy. I don't think you should be giving forearm shivers.
It was all jokes. It was all fun, but I was like, come on.
You should have seriously looked in with your devilish eyes there and said, meet me at the playground after school. Well, we're going to have a conversation about it. And you're already at school and there's a playground.
That is true. That's true. Settle it on the playground, teachers or students. All arguments should be settled out on the playground. We'll take it outside. Yeah.
Local man arrested for fighting another teacher over
something that was made in jest about his Chicago White Sox. They can't even help themselves, let alone try to help any other team. But there was a blurb in the Crane's Chicago Business this past week. Dan McGrath, whole article on Sizemore and how if things kind of trend a little bit in his direction, how he could, have that interim label removed. There just seems to be between Merkin and that little article and, the players wearing these T-shirts, these Grady Sizemore T-shirts. I wondered for those T-shirts, and if you didn't see this, somebody made up Grady Sizemore T-shirts. It's got him like in a uniform on the T-shirt. I think it's just got the back of his uniform, and they, very complimentary about their experiences with Grady right now, and that like we're all in this together, and I wonder if it is that kind of friend relationship right now, and it's like we're buddies, and Grady's not really somebody that's going to be a taskmaster. He's not going to be somebody that's going to, hold anybody truly accountable. It's more of, hey, it's okay. I'm just the substitute. I'm the fun guy, just like, and if they feel like, oh, this is a breath of fresh air and we're going to wear Grady Sizemore T-shirts to celebrate, but you as a team, I mean, half of those guys are probably not even going to be there, next year. And are you just kind of glamoring onto something that was given to you that's not Pedro? Or do you really think this is the guy? This is like the manager you want to lead you beyond, or is it just the thing that right now? Because there could be something even more amazing if there's an actual managerial search to be had.
I'd like to think it's more of a, let's just have some fun. The guys, we like him. He's a nice guy. Let's wear a shirt with him on it, right? Let's just have some fun. I mean, if you can't have fun during this season, I mean, it's going to kill you, I think. Yeah. I mean, after this long, after being around the losers that you've been around, the zero leadership that you've experienced, that your home fans chanting for the team to be sold, it can't be a fun environment to go to work in every day. And you're just like counting down the days until you're in the off season. And it's like, I need to relax. I need to go play some golf. I need to get away from these people. And I cannot wait. It's like summer break for a kid, right? That's where they're at right now. So I can't imagine that. And let's go back to what you were talking about. Listen, we don't want a taskmaster. We like this guy. He's the friend. He's part of the group. He's a bro. That's fantastic. I don't really care what kind of manager, if they're a nice guy, a mean guy, or a taskmaster or not a taskmaster. Be a hell of a communicator, be able to galvanize a room, and be able to get people to follow you. And if that's Grady Sizemore, fantastic. I can't bank the future of my organization on an unproven guy right now. But listen, if he turns out to be fantastic, great. But I don't really care if he's, again, get on your ass type guy and work you to grind you down and build you back up type of guy. Listen, just be a hell of a communicator, be able to bring people together from different backgrounds, different cultures, have everybody pulling on the same end of the rope, all the things that people like to say. And that's what I need. But again, going back to Pedro, I liked a lot of the things that Pedro said when he took over the team. All the stuff, we're gonna do this, we're gonna win on the margins, we're gonna be this, but he just wasn't able to take the words on a paper and get the guys in the room motivated to do them, or he wasn't able to put a staff together that was able to teach that and instruct that and hold guys accountable to that. So however it is, again, take what you're going to say on the podium someday and be able to bring it into the clubhouse.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his hands full, and that's an understatement in terms of just, talent and lack thereof. Kai Bush, he's on the Hill on Sunday, and the dude just continues to struggle with location. Or maybe that was on Saturday. I'm sorry. It was this weekend series. And, what can you do? Cannon, pitched on Sunday, 4 innings and, 5 runs. And Tuki Toussaint, he gave up a handful of runs today, gave him up on Saturday. The bullpen is absolutely atrocious. It doesn't matter who the manager is. They do not have the arms in the bullpen. And they have zero offense. So how do you motivate absolute garbage? I don't know.
I tried yelling at it. I tried punching it. Nothing worked.
Yeah. So again, good players make good managers. And I think, though, there are some people out there that, because of their track record, because of who they are, because of maybe their baseball IQ, that have been in the game in the right places, will absolutely command respect. No question about it, no matter who is in that dugout, veterans, rookies, what have you, and has been through it before. Like, I know this. Okay. I know this drill. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to get success out of this, but I feel very comfortable and confident not just trying things out, seeing maybe if this will work. Like, I have a bit of a blueprint because I've done it before. Now, and maybe that's just because I was so pissed when Pedro came in, and he just had zero experience. He had a baseball resume, but he had zero experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for somebody that, has some experience, and that, okay, if you want to have somebody in the uniform right now, that's fine. But boy, they have got to be somebody that commands respect, can be a leader, can hold people accountable, and absolutely get the most out of whatever the White Sox are going to be, whatever your identity is going to be. And that's, again, we thought, okay, the Sox have got this certain type of identity heading into spring training, into the season. This is the type of team they're going to be. Great. Well, then be the best version of that.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it. We saw sloppy play and little league stuff and just poor decisions and poor managing. And it just completely fell off the rails almost immediately.
Yeah. I guess I'm just looking for, the next manager to be able to sit up in front of in the press conference and say, when I was here and we face adversity, this is what I was able to do, or this is what we as a group were able to do to turn the ship around. And when I was at this position, we encountered X, Y, and Z, and we had a tough time with our bullpen. Here's the experience that I will bring, knowing, going through that. And this is how we're going to do it here. Like watching guys like have training wheels on, trying to figure out how to be a manager for the first time is not something that I'm really interested in. But again, is it going to make that much of a difference? Because as I mentioned before, is the next manager is he the next Ricky Renteria? Someone that's just got to be here to wear it. That's going to be a good culture guy, because we can't have another Pedro. We can't have the losses and everybody hate this team. We can have some losses out there, but we've got to be able to show that we can play hard, and we're not going to quit, and we're not going to be a complete embarrassment. But we know that ultimately we're going to lose on most nights because we just don't have the talent like the other team does. So what kind of manager is that out there? Hell, I'd like to have Ricky back. I've said it 1,000 times. I really wish I would like to have seen what would this organization trajectory would have been on had they just kept Ricky, because he wasn't that god awful when you look back on it, to where I don't think he would have drove this team into the ground. I think the team would have continued to go on the pace it was going to, and going to back-to-back, playoffs, which never happens around here. I think that would have happened anyway. And at least the players would have liked playing for Ricky, I think. And maybe guys that continually are hurt wouldn't be continually hurt because they respect the manager. I don't know. But I'm just curious of the what if game. I love the what if game.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's everybody's favorite, whether it's at home or vacations. It's such a fun game to play. Yeah, I often wonder that. I wonder just if he was given the opportunity to see it all the way through. This thing that he was building and didn't have much. He wasn't given much, but it was. There were tough times, but it was kind of exciting to watch. It really was. He seemed to be getting the most out, especially in terms of development, from young guys and the collection of that roster. Peyton had asked, what would be a short list of organizations you want the Sox to poach from? And that's a great question. Like teams like Tampa Bay always come on, people's lists, and I think I would want to I got to sit down and think about some organizations that do so much with very little. And I think that is Tampa, right? You think of teams that don't overly spend, and how do they do it? And so, but then that goes back to something you were just mentioning, and we've kind of circled on and discussed. At the end of the day, whatever manager you bring in, would they be able to be successful in the White Sox organization with the limitations that the White Sox have and Jerry has? Would they step in and say, wow, I just am coming from a well-oiled machine where we had so many different departments and everybody knew their role, and we were ahead of the times, and we weren't spending like crazy, but we got the most out of it because of great scouting and great development and analytics. And, we had a great identity and just excellent front office, and everybody tried to make each other better. It was a team of rivals. It was differing opinion. It was a healthy, cohesive thing. I don't know about this thing you got going on in Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know. So again, you could identify if Getz actually can identify the next great mind, and you could try to coax them into coming into Chicago. You've got the salary that you're in years that you're going to have to deal with whatever Jerry's limitations are. And then it's, do we have the tools? Do we have the setup? Do we have everything that this manager would need and want to replicate whatever we're trying to poach from?
I would say on my short list of organizations that I think you'd look at, one would be Atlanta, just because, again, the years of successful runs in different eras. Atlanta would be one. I've always admired what St. Louis has done. They seemingly in most years are, and again, you might look at that division always and say, well, that's an easy division. Everybody says that about our division all the time too. I'll take whatever they're doing down in St. Louis. They seem to be able to have a St. Louis way, a Cardinals way. I'll take that. Whatever Cleveland has done over the years to do a lot with not a lot of budget either. I'll look at Cleveland a little bit. I'll even look at Minnesota. I mean, these are two teams in our division we see an awful lot that seemingly do less with more, right?
Yep.
These are teams in smaller markets that can get the most out of their players. They put the right managers in place. And again, they have an organizational philosophy. That's what I'm hoping for. And my last two are going to surprise you because they probably wouldn't be good fits. One would be the Dodgers. That's if you want like gold standard, like this is how you run it right now. Again, that comes with having the ability to spend whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
But that hasn't taken, they do that, but it hasn't taken away from a farm system that continually be ranked. And I'm going to guess they're always ranked in the top 10. It just seems like they've always got guys that they can move out and move in, and they keep doing well with whatever they're doing as an organization. And the last one is not currently, but if you've got guys that are still in baseball that worked with Oakland at some point, when the Oakland A's were continuing to go to the playoffs and somehow the money ball, all that stuff, like if there's guys that are still out there that are from that staff of people that were doing things when the Oakland A's were, how are the A's doing this all the time?
It was an interesting era. Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of shooting them all over the place because you've got the Dodgers that spend at the top of the market, and it doesn't matter how much guys cost, and they're going to go out and get guys, but that's gold standard to me. They're still a really great organization despite, just spending their way out of mistakes. And I think the other organizations are ones that you look at and go, how have you been able to sustain success for years and years and years and have multiple great players and all-star type players come through? You've made shrewd trades, they have philosophies that have, stood for a long, long time and produced a lot of fruit for them.
Yeah, I think it's healthy organizations. People know their roles, they know their assignments. Greg mentioned Baltimore, and I've talked about a friend of mine that I check in with every now and then. I got to know when I was living in DC for a short amount of time years ago. He's a diehard Orioles fan, and he can't say enough about the new ownership group and just the keys that the owner just kind of gave. Just here you go, do what you need to do. Let me know what you need, and how fan friendly they are. It's something that is foreign to me. It's foreign to all Sox fans. So yeah, Baltimore is another, so again, what are we talking about? Owners, Phillies, Philadelphia. I mean, what a fun organization. How did they get so fun? Well,
yeah,
there's some
excuse me. I'd like to say that in a press conference, like, excuse me, Pat Hester, Good Guys Talk Back. I have a question for you. How did you guys get so fun? I'll take a minute and let you consult. Get your thoughts together. I'm ready whenever you are.
How did the fun come about? Well, I've got a quote of the week we're going to get to in just a second here. I tell you, it is talk about fun. These sometimes are like, whoa, what's going to happen tonight? It's been a tough week. This team hit 100 losses. We've always got some great stuff to get to, but all of the fine folks that jump in every Sunday night, and the folks that connect, that just can listen to the audio, but they're connecting, they're listening. I passing this along to other Sox fans. I appreciate it, but everybody in the comments tonight, it was awesome. What a great collection of comments, and it really means a ton. I mean, you guys are, you folks are the fuel, to this podcast. You really are. So a fun night indeed, Pat.
I mean, you texted me earlier and you said, I don't know what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
and I said 30 minutes of t-shirt talk. And somehow we've cobbled together an hour's worth of a podcast. So
yeah.
And it's on everybody that helps and contributes tonight. And we just try and have a little fun. That's all.
Yeah. Here is your quote of the week. So it could come from all different kinds of sources, but this one is from Grady Sizemore. This is what Grady said just a few days ago about our Chicago White Sox. They've been fighting, Sizemore said. They've been putting together good at-bats, playing good defense. The effort is there. Sometimes we just get beat. Sometimes they have a better outing, whether it's pitching or offense. It's hard to win in this league, end quote. There's your quote of the week.
I like how Grady sounds exactly like Pedro.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah.
Isn't that odd how I've turned him now into Pedro?
Yeah.
It's funny how I'm able to do that.
Interesting. Yeah. Sometimes it is hard to win in this league.
It really is hard to win in this league.
It's a hard thing to do. It's actually hard to only have won 31 games, I would argue. That's hard. They've done the harder thing, actually.
To get to 100 losses by August 25th is unbelievable. I mean, you really have to try at that.
Yeah.
That's an effort.
And Greg says, let's get 106 losses by this time next week. I will say just probably we're going to take a hiatus next week. It is Labor Day weekend. You and I had talked about possibly giving ourselves a little bit of a PTO weekend. So, for those of you that don't look for us next week, because we may be off. I'm sure Nick will tweet about that for sure.
It is, it's Labor Day weekend. We were, just in terms of scheduling and time and everything, it could be a little tricky. So we'll kind of chew on this for this week to see how we're going to manage it. If we're not going to manage it, could be just a Labor Day off, lick our wounds, and by the time we definitely come back from that, we'll have a team record for sure.
Unless they sign Pedro to
Grady,
a 7-year deal.
Grady, not Pedro.
Pedro. If they sign Pedro back, then we definitely have to have an emergency.
We made a huge
and it'll be the last one. And we'll say goodnight. It was great.
If they resign, if they bring back Pedro Grifol and he sneaks in like with a Bobby Valentine costume and gets an interview, and they sign him, yes, it'll be the end of the podcast.
Oh, I thought we were actually interviewing Bobby.
I've always wondered how this podcast would end one day, like when the last episode would be, and if it's Pedro Grifol gets the managerial job in 2025. That's how it
And
ends.
He only got it because he was disguised as Bobby Valentine. That would be great.
we thought we were hiring Bobby Valentine.
Well, what's done is done. So
we can't. Contract's a contract.
These things are binding.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, Pat. This was a lot of fun, buddy.
Hey, I enjoy it, my friend. Thank you for being you and bringing the best there is to this podcast.
Appreciate that, folks. You can find this podcast absolutely everywhere. Audio available wherever you find your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Good Guys Talk Back, live on Sunday nights at 9:15. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.